second? TV's ready. Are you ready, Cheryl? All right. Good evening. I call this meeting to order. It's a regular council meeting of May 28th, 2009. The time is 7:30 p.m. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Bliss.
I'm here.
Councilman Corbett.
Here.
Councilman Gettings.
Here.
Councilor Grafstein. Here. Councilwoman Scott. Councilman Soltis.
Here.
Mayor Hartwell.
I'm here. Okay, thank you. Would you please rise for an invocation to be led by Mayor Pro Tem Bliss and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
In lieu of an invocation tonight, with Memorial Day yesterday, I'd like us all to observe a moment of silence for all those men and women who died serving our country, giving us the ability to have this meeting here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. You may be seated. Are there any additions to the agenda tonight?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I would like to add to the agenda under presentations, item number 3, a certificate of congratulations to the Memorial Day essay winner.
Thank you. Very good. Is there support to add this to the agenda?
Your Honor, I second.
I'm sorry, what was the addition? Memorial Day, and then I lost it.
The Memorial Day essay winner. Just a special presentation to that young student.
Okay, gotcha.
So motion was made by Councilor Grafstein, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem, to add to presentations, presentation number 3, a special presentation to the Hiller Elementary student for the Memorial Day essay contest. Is there any discussion? All in favor of adding this to the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Any other additions or deletions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can we make a motion to excuse Councilwoman Scott, please?
Yes, very good. Is there support?
Support, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. A motion was made by Councilman Soltis, seconded by Councilman Gettings to excuse Councilwoman Scott from tonight's meeting. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion carries. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Thank you. We can start with presentations. There are 3 tonight. The first is the Gun Violence Awareness Day proclamation. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
City Council is requested to approve a proclamation declaring the first Friday of June, which is June the 7th, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day, encouraging all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives.
Thank you. Is there anything we're giving or no?
Not to anybody. I have a proclamation, but you can just give it to me.
Okay, that's fine. All right. We'll display that in an appropriate place. Thank you, Mrs. Marsh. The next presentation is the resolution recognizing LGBTQ Pride Month. Mrs. Marsh, a report?
Yes, we have a resolution recognizing LGBTQ plus Pride Month, whereas LGBTQ refers to the identities of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other sexual orientations and gender identities separate from the identities of heterosexual, including those whose sexual orientation and gender identities which have not been listed. And whereas all people born free are equal in dignity and rights regardless of quality, such as their sexual orientation or their gender identity. And whereas despite an extraordinary progress of the past few years, LGBTQ plus Americans still face discrimination simply because of who they are. And whereas 4.1% of Americans identify as LGBTQ plus, and whereas 42% of LGBTQ plus people report living in an unwelcoming environment as a result of their sexual orientation or gender identities. And whereas 60% of LGBTQ plus students report feeling unsafe or bullied at school as a result of their sexual orientation or gender identities. And whereas 73% of LGBTQ youth feel more comfortable being honest about their identities online rather than in person due to fear of discrimination. And whereas 68% of LGBTQ youth say that they hear negative messages about LGBTQ+ from elected leaders, and whereas LGBTQ+ youth contemplate suicide at almost 3 times the rate of their heterosexual peers. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Madison Heights recognizes the month of June as LGBTQ Pride Month, strives to protect the rights of LGBTQ+ residents, and calls upon the people of Madison Heights to eliminate prejudice wherever it exists and to celebrate the real diversity of our city.
Thank you very much. Very good. Oh, going back a step, was there someone here for the gun proclamation that would be willing to accept this on the city's behalf? Would you please rise and come here to accept this proclamation? You can come here.
Thank you.
And then, based on past practice, Emma, would you accept the proclamation for the LGBTQ Pride Month?
Thank you.
Okay, for the next presentation, the one that we added to the agenda tonight, one of the boards and commission members will present that is Lori Gerald's. Would you please come and give your report for the next presentation?
Thank you. My name is Lori Geralds. I'm past president of the Madison Heights Intermediate Women's Club, and we are the parade directors, and we have several club members on the parade committee as well as community members. We did an essay contest this year for the first time in many years. All the 4th graders at the elementary schools were invited to to participate. The only school that participated was Hiller, and their 2 4th grade classes brought in 19 essays, which actually we were very excited about that. So, Gabby? So, if you were at the memorial service on Saturday, you saw that Gabby Tarani was there, and his essay was read in front of everybody at the memorial service. He is a very sweet, shy kid, so he actually allowed the commander of the VFW who was there to read it, and it was very, very nice, very touching. So, Gabby, here you go. You get a certificate from City Council to recognize you for your essay. So, you can take that, and then I would like you to stand over there and go shake everybody's hand. Okay?
All right, the next part of the agenda is public hearings. There are none, so we can go to items on agenda of interest to parties in the audience. So at this time, without objection, we're going to go to reports.
Your Honor.
D1. Yes?
I would ask that we move up F and G earlier in the meeting, particularly the ordinances I think are really relevant to the public to bring up.
Okay. Yeah, we can bring items of interest up. So we'll do, you said F and G.
Yeah,
I'm going to
'cause-
also bring D. We'll keep it in alphabetical order.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. F has the active adult center relocation, and then
Okay, that's
the 3
fine. If there's no objection, we'll just move on. I don't think there merits discussion. So right now, we're at D1 reports. It's from a report from the interim DPS director, the West Nile virus abatement reimbursement resolution. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report on this item?
Yes. The City of Madison Heights is again eligible for reimbursement from Oakland County for projected expenses related to our fight against the West Nile virus. The Department of Public Service recently dropped larvicide briquettes in each residential catch basin throughout the entire city. These briquettes, which last 180 days, prevent mosquito larvae from maturing into adults, significantly reducing the summer mosquito population. Basins will be tested periodically to assure that larvicide is doing its job. DPS is also responsible for treating areas of standing water in the parks and commercial and industrial areas, such as stormwater retention and detention ponds and fountains. Staff and I recommend that council approve a resolution to allow the city to receive reimbursement from Oakland County for $3,910.84.
Thank you. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So I move that the council approve the allocation of money and accepting the sharing agreement with the county related to the West Nile virus
Very good.
treatment.
Very good. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Gettings?
support.
Thank you. A motion was made by Councilman Corbett, seconded by Councilman Gettings, to approve the allocation of funds regarding the West Nile virus abatement reimbursement resolution with Oakland County. Is there discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion carries. The next item that's been brought forward in the agenda will be item F1. It's a bid award or a purchase from the city manager. It's the feasibility and design services for the active adult relocation and library/city hall remodel. Mrs. Marsh?
During the strategic planning process this past fall, City Council and staff worked together to come up with several items, one of which was to look at all tax-exempt properties within the city and identify any tax-exempt properties that could maybe be sold or redeveloped, and those locations be relocated to a tax-exempt area. So one of the prime real estate areas in the city is our Active Adult Center. This Active Adult Center currently needs a significant amount of maintenance and renovations, and so it also sits on about a 3+ acre piece of parcel that, for those of you who don't know, is located across the street from the Texas Roadhouse, also where the new BJ's is going to be located. So one of the things the council approved doing was a feasibility study to determine if we could relocate the Active Adult Center to this parcel, which is tax exempt, and convert that currently tax exempt parcel into a taxable property, which will bring in revenue to the city for years to come. So tonight on the agenda is the RFP for that process. Staff put that together and released it back in February. We received 6 bids around the 1st of April. We went through a very comprehensive process and found that a company, Partners in Architecture, who has a representative here tonight, Michael Malone, had my deal pricing. They have also offered a 50% credit of their Phase 1 study fees. So the feasibility study, they're going to charge us $19,800 for that. If we decide to move forward, they'll take half of that and apply it to a Phase 2 project for design services. So staff and I recommend that City Council award the Active Adult Center relocation and City Hall remodeling feasibility design services to Partners in Architecture in the initial amount not to exceed $19,800 for Phase 1, pending a contract review and approval by the City Attorney.
Thank you, Mrs. Marsh. What's the wish of City Council?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we award the Active Adult Center relocation and Library City Hall remodel feasibility and design services to Partners in Agriculture for an amount not to exceed $19,800 pending review of the attorneys and allowing, you said city manager to sign on behalf of the city?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Grafstein?
support.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Bliss, seconded by Councilor Grafstein, to approve the award of the $19,800 feasibility and design services contract for the active adult relocation and Library City Hall remodel, pending contract review, approval by the city attorney, and allow the city manager to sign. I'll open up discussion. Do we have any controls on who the potential contractors could be? I think several members of council have expressed a desire to use local organized labor for primarily a safety reason, but a quality reason, and also to promote local workers. Are there any controls for that?
I wouldn't say there's controls, but that's definitely something we can look at when we get to that stage. So this is just the first phase to see if we can even do it, if we can afford to do it, and if it'll fit on this tax exempt parcel. So before we get to phase 2, that's definitely something we would be talking to partners in architecture about.
All right, well, maybe I'll just speak for myself, but any feasibility study with hard numbers, I'd like to see estimates based on, especially the organized skilled trades that many of them live and operate in Madison Heights. That'll be important to me to approve any, final project. But of course, I will vote yes for the feasibility study. Just wanted to plant that seed. Is there other discussion from members of City Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
No, I appreciate you saying that because I agree with you as well. I think that we should look at that prevailing wage or local unions involvement in that.
Yeah. Okay. Other discussion, Your Honor? Mr. Bliss?
Sure. So I know we have a representative from the company here tonight, but I'd love to have staff talk about the vision behind this. I know in the earlier comments, it was mentioned that this allows for a current tax-exempt property to be sold, which obviously offers some benefits for us, not only selling the property to be able to use that income to invest in things like quality of life programming and public safety, but it'll also allow us to have ongoing tax revenue. But beyond that, this will add some benefits to the Active Adult Center itself, as well as the library and City Hall. And I'd love if staff could talk a little bit about the vision there. Ms. Marsh, do you think that that's something you could touch on?
Oh, sure. So this was my idea that I actually brought to City Council, so I can touch on it for a long time, but I'll hit the highlights. So the idea is from selling this 3+ acre parcel, it's actually closer to 5 acres, but there's a section of it that's currently a walking trail that we would not be selling, we don't think. So we would take the proceeds from that and use that to actually build the Active Adult Center. So the idea currently is to place it in between City Hall and the library, so actually out the glass doors to the back there, and connect possibly these 3 buildings, or at least connect the Active Adult Center and the library. That will allow us to also expand and renovate the library. And also hopefully renovate this space, because I don't know how many of you come to City Hall on a regular basis, but as you walk down the hallway, it looks pretty much like a ghost town, and there are a lot of underutilized space in this particular building that we are heating on a regular basis, we are doing electricity on a regular basis, and it's not really the most efficient layout anymore for the reduced amount of staff that we have and foresee having in the future. So the idea would be to build an Active Adult Center with some shared space, because there's a large space at the current Active Adult Center that's not used on a regular basis either, and to also remodel City Hall and remodel and maybe extend, make bigger the library as well. So that will create a better experience for the library and update that space, and maybe also allow us to add teen space or more user-friendly spaces in that area.
Thank you. I know a representative from Partners in Architecture is here. Maybe they could tell our residents how they would approach this process. I know they've done a lot of local facade upgrades and projects like this. So I'd love to just hear their experience, very short recap for our residents on what they can expect out of this and what that process is going to look like.
While he's walking to the microphone, I will say that was one, not only were they the lowest bidder, which I kind of went off script because I got a lot of questions about this particular agenda item, but they were not only the lowest bidder, but a lot of their projects were right in the same dollar amount, and they did a lot of senior centers, and a lot of their design is exactly what we had been thinking about in this arena, so.
Good evening. Could you identify yourself?
Good evening. Hi, Mike Malone with Partners in Architecture, one of the owners of the company. And I think, Melissa, you had spoken with David previously, who was my partner. He had another meeting tonight, so I'm kind of, we're tag teaming this one, I suppose. But as far as our experience goes, we've done a ton of these types of projects. I bet 98% of our work is public work, so we worked in a lot of the communities around here. We actually work in both of the school districts in Madison Heights, so we're very familiar with the city. We've done a few senior centers recently, Commerce Township, St. Clair Shores, and Roseville, East Point. So the way we start a project like this is try to understand the vision of the community, the goals of the community, with meeting with whomever you deem necessary. So your department heads, a lot of times we've invited public in if that's what you want, kind of gain an understanding of what the community is all about, what's important to the groups that are going to use the spaces, and then develop an overall space program. From that, we develop multiple concepts. We have some existing buildings here and infrastructure that I understand parts are underutilized, maybe some are a little tight, so possibly there's some reconfiguration necessary that we could gain some economies with the new space as well. So potentially take some of this building and the other and combine them. Sorry, I don't know if that was me, but anyways, come up with multiple options to present to the group with associated costs as well. So we're very cost conscious. We know every public dollar is very hard to come by. So we don't have extravagant facilities. If you look at our previous projects, they're all pretty beautiful projects, but not over the top by any means.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I spoke to an administrator today at Lamfair. I saw that they had done some work. You guys had done some work for Lamfair, and they were very satisfied with their work and very pleased with your company.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Other comments? Thank you, Mr. Malone. Hearing no other comments from council, we can vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion carries. The next item brought forward is F2. It's a bid award or a purchase. It's from the interim DPS director. It's regarding the library carpet replacement project. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, as part of the fiscal year 2019 capital improvement plan, staff, with the support of the Library Advisory Board, identified the replacement of the carpeting in the library building as a priority project. Although the carpet has been regularly cleaned twice a year at 12 years of age and routine heavy traffic, the carpet is extremely worn and is in very poor shape. As a result, it reflects poorly on the library in general. After the winter season was finished, staff prepared an invitation to bid for carpeting replacement. 4 bids were received, each of which sent a representative to the mandatory pre-bid meeting. Upon review of these bids, staff has identified Floorcraft of Clinton Township as the lowest bidder and the sole vendor meeting the required qualifications and conditions, including the warranty period and time to meet the required complete the project. This project will require a temporary closure of the library, and it is the staff's intent to limit the inconvenience to the public by not closing any longer than necessary. The low bid for this project is $62,550. This is $15,050 over the budgeted amount. Staff and the Library Advisory Board recommend utilizing funds available from the library reserve. On June 30th of 2018, reserve funds were $134,000. So this is money that can only be spent on the library from the library millage. Staff and I respectfully request that council consider 2 motions. 1, to approve the library carpet replacement project to the lowest qualified bidder, Floorcraft Systems of Clinton Township, for a total project amount of $62,550. And 2, to approve the budget amendment in the amount of $15,050 for the excess library millage reserve funds. And some of you in the audience may be wondering, why are we replacing a carpet right after you heard me talk about remodeling the library? But the library renovation project, the project we were just talking about, is 2 to 3 years in the making. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And if you visited the library anytime recently, you will see what terrible condition the carpet is. It actually has trip hazards in certain places, and when you very first walk into the building, it's like you're still just walking on cement. So we do feel if we replace the carpet now, we still will be able to utilize the carpet if we remodel it. And so that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Marsh. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I move that the council approve the library carpet replacement project to the lowest qualified bidder, Floorcraft Systems, of Clinton Township for a total project cost of $62,550.
Thank you. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Gettings?
support.
Thank you. Motion was made by Councilmember Corbett, seconded by Councilman Gettings, to approve the library carpet replacement project to the lowest qualified bidder, Floorcraft Systems, for a total project amount of $62,550. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Soltis? Oh, sorry.
So I'd like to ask, I know it's the last minute, but does that cover inside the Madison room, the conference area?
Breckenridge Room?
Yeah.
No, that area currently, it's only for places where carpet currently exists, so not in that space. And that is one of the spaces that will be looked at heavily when we're doing the renovation. So that's not one of the areas. It currently just has tile.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, because we started that weekend kid play day, and when I went there, they were playing on that tile. And so I was just wondering what exactly we could do to kind of offset that, because it was slippery and dirty.
I know Rosalind was looking for donations of a large area size rugs, but I'm not sure that she must not have received them yet, but I can follow up with her on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Almus, if you could join me for a moment, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's fair that, the question is, we're going to be doing remodeling and stuff. But on the other hand, I know I am concerned, and a lot of people are, about the condition of some of the carpeting. Could you just talk a little bit about the necessity of this project?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, and members of council. The existing condition of the carpet is in very poor shape right now. Like Ms. Marchette said, the project, proposed project, is still 2 to 3 years away, and it's nothing that staff feels comfortable leaving the carpet in existing condition, with the several areas that pop up and raise and present itself as trip hazards to the general public. The library has approximately 7,000 to 8,000 visitors every month, and that gets up to around 10,000 visitors in certain months during certain events for that month. That's a lot of people going in and out of that, and out of our city's library. We still want to generate that attractiveness to the library, and we think that not only for a safety reason, but also aesthetics reasons, we think it's important that council approve the carpeting improvements.
And you commented in the middle of that your expectation is that the areas which are carpeted might not necessarily be involved in any rehab or renovation projects?
Yeah, it's we believe that the existing footprint where the carpeting currently exists is not going to be modified as a result of the proposed modifications to the library.
Mm-hmm. In a response, it was a good point brought up by Mr. Soltis. The only thing is that room has multi-uses. It's used for kids, you're right, and carpeting might be appreciated. But on the other hand, book clubs, lectures, club meetings, and other places where you might not necessarily want carpeting, or it's not as advantageous. So, yeah, but this actually gets limited use compared to the Breckenridge room. I mean, the Breckenridge room gets used every day virtually. I won't say every day, but it gets used a lot more often, and a lot different uses. We don't have very many gym classes in here, so. But, okay, that's it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, please.
may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So the comment was made that the library will be closing for a period of time. Any estimates on the length?
The contractor proposed a 3-day closure. I think that that's very optimistic on them doing that. It's going to require some DPS involvement and coordination to assist with that process. But this contractor has been around for quite some time. They're very familiar with the process of even working in libraries. So they, if it's Any more than 3 days, I don't foresee it being much longer than that.
Maybe a week at the maximum?
I would say 3 to 5 days.
Okay, thank you.
max.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So is it not possible for them to do it in zones using the Breckenridge Room as a staging area of sorts? Is that not possible in this?
I don't know what the contractor has proposed and their I guess their timeframe and how they're going to do it. I know that there's going to be some movement of the existing bookshelves that are in place. We're carpeting the entire library where there's already existing carpeting, as well as underneath the bookshelves that have not historically been carpeted. And the reason for that is that doing so provides an opportunity to reconfigure the layout of the library.
So would it be possible for them to do a section, move those bookshelves into the Breckenridge Room to allow for use? I do know that there are folks that utilize that library, whether it's for computer services or books or entertainment purposes, who would be really hurt even to have a few days without access.
Well, I think with the unit price of what they've quoted is with the idea that the library is going to be closed. If we change the scope or propose the changing of the scope of work, as they've bet it, may change the scope of having to work around periodic closures, may increase the unit price for the project.
Your Honor, one of the reasons for the closure and the unknown, so Corey talked about the 3 days, but one of the unknown pieces is that to do it the way it's currently proposed, we only have to take the books off the very bottom shelf because they're only picking up the shelves, putting down the carpet. If they were to completely move those shelves, we would have to do like we did when we renovated and take off all of the books. That takes an extensive amount of time. We relied on volunteers. I made my husband come box books, so it takes a long time to do that. So that would disrupt services more.
Your Honor, just in an interim step, I'm okay with the short-term closure, but particularly for the computer lab and those services, I think it's really vital for our community. So while that is closed, either if we can open up the Breckenridge Room and move the computers into there, or open it up in City Hall, in the basement somewhere, a park shelter, it doesn't matter. He's setting up some wireless internet access along with access to those computers, I think is vital to our community.
I'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, thank you. Let's vote on this matter. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries. There's a second part to this matter, and that would require a budget amendment. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So I move that the council approve a budget amendment in the amount of $15,050 from the excess library millage reserve funds for the purposes of supporting the carpeting project.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Soltis?
support.
Thank you. A motion was made by Councilman Corbett, seconded by Councilman Soltis, to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $15,050 from the excess library millage reserve funds to support the previously approved library carpet project. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
pursuant to Section 7.6 of the Charter, because we are appropriating additional money for this purpose, 5 votes of council is required.
Thank you. Is there other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. There was another item that was asked to be brought forward, and we'll do that right now. It's item G2. It's under ordinances. It's item G2. It's ordinance 2140. It's the second reading of the ordinance for the discharge of consumer fireworks. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, in accordance with the request of Councilman Corbett at the council meeting of February the 11th, City Council was requested to consider a proposed ordinance amendment that would amend Section 12-72 of the Madison Heights Code of Ordinances regarding permitted days and times for fireworks. In December of 2018, House Bill 5940 was introduced to allow municipalities more ability to regulate the days and times that consumer fireworks could be ignited, discharged, or used. The new state law allows municipalities to enact an ordinance that prohibits basically consumer fireworks. So I heard a lot about this over the holidays on Facebook. Everyone thought this ordinance was already in effect for Memorial Day. It was not, but it will be for July, so please pay attention to the days. For July the 4th, it will be allowed June the 29th to July the 4th until 11:45 p.m. on each of those days. And July the 5th, if that day is Friday or Saturday, which it is not this year, until 11:45 p.m. On New Year's, December the 31st until 1 a.m. on January the 1st. The Saturday and Sunday immediately preceding Memorial Day until 11:45 on each of those days. The Saturday and Sunday immediately preceding Labor Day until 11:45 on each of those days. In addition, the newly enacted state law requires that if a municipality enacts these new times, that the ordinance shall also impose a $1,000 fine for each violation. This proposed amendment adopts the newly enacted language under state law that would prohibit the use and discharge of consumer fireworks in the city all days except those that I just read, which were outlined in the new state law. The proposed amendment also incorporates the mandatory penalty provisions as required by state law. Staff, the city's attorney's office, and I recommend that council adopt this proposed ordinance amendment on this second and final reading.
Thank you. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I move that the council adopt ordinance 2140 on second reading, discharge of consumer fireworks.
Thank you. Is there support?
Brenner.
Mr. Bliss?
I second.
Thank you. The record should reflect all those very important reasons that we mentioned at the last regular meeting. I don't know, maybe second to none is how it affects veterans and retired first responders who suffer from PTSD and explosions 30, 40, 50 times a year is very disruptive to their well-being. So I think this is the right move to make. Are there other comments from council?
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor?
Mr. Corbett?
If I could call on the chief for a moment. At the last meeting, I know Councilman Bliss, I believe, asked for a report on implementation, and subsequent I had some conversations about some follow-up I had gotten from people and concerns regarding it. So I was wondering if you could specifically address the plan, or I know you're working on something for a procedure within your department, but if you might talk about how you plan to implement as best as possible.
Yes.
Welcome,
Mr. Mayor, thank you, City Council. What we plan to do is we are preparing, actually we already have it prepared, we have a training bulletin for our officers. We're fully prepared to act upon the new ordinance as it's proposed and as it will be adopted. What we will do is receive the calls for service, we'll respond to those. We'll also do proactive patrols. If we're able to locate the violator and identify who it is, they will receive a warning. Their information will then be entered into our in-house computer system that signifies that they've been given a warning, so that if we go out to that residence a second time, then they would be issued a citation for violating the fireworks ordinance at that point. And that'll include the prohibition in city parks and everywhere else. But our idea is if the ordinance is passed as proposed, then we'll get that training bulletin out first thing tomorrow.
And Your Honor, I was wondering if possibly City Attorney Sherman might be able to just comment a bit on the issue of fines. What is the situation with what would be the applicable fine for somebody convicted under the ordinance? I know it allows for a maximum of 1,000, but.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Under the new state law, the law requires us to include in the ordinance the imposition of a $1,000 fine for each violation, and it also requires, the new state law requires that 500 of the $1,000 fine be remitted to the police department responsible for enforcing the ordinance. I indicated to council after first reading at our last regular meeting that someone asked the question about extenuating circumstance or something out of the ordinary happening when a case comes to court. at the 43rd District Court, we have the discretion to amend the charges as we deem appropriate based on all the facts and circumstances, which could take some sting out of the fine that's dictated in the ordinance.
I'm all set, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. Is there other discussion from
Hey,
council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Gettings, please.
I believe this year, July 5th will fall on a Friday.
Yes, it does.
Is that, I don't have a calendar, I'm trying to do it
Mr.
in
Mayor, that
my
is
head.
correct. July 4th is on Thursday. That is correct.
Counselor,
So, did we say something that was,
Oh, I did say it was not the show. I was thinking it was Wednesday.
okay, just so we're all on the
It's my
same
birthday. I
page?
should know what day of the week it is.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Mr. Gettings. Is there other discussion from city council?
Your Honor,
Yes, Mr. Bliss.
just a follow-up question for the chief. You had mentioned not on parks, city property, et cetera. Could you, just for the sake of the public, discuss the firing off of fireworks in the public street?
Yes, they should not be fired off in the public street. You know, it's a hazard not only to the vehicles that are traveling, but it's a great distraction to everybody involved. So it's not safe. You know, the safest place is at the end of your driveway where it's on your property, as far away from trees and as far away from any other vehicles as possible.
And so with anybody who would be firing them off in the street, they would be subject to the same warning, followed by the potential $1,000 fine, as discussed earlier?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Question for the chief, Mr. Mayor.
Please, yes.
You say the end of the driveway, that's actually the easement, correct?
Correct.
So you're saying that's okay, or,
As far away from the house as possible without being
Right.
in the street, yes.
okay, thanks, Corey.
Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Soltis.
Chief, we know you guys do a great job, but I mean, how is this really gonna, so if somebody lights it off, and then you roll up on scene, and everyone's like, I don't know, so how's that gonna work? I mean, are you gonna take eyewitnesses and then possibly find somebody because of an eyewitness?
Well, generally speaking, it's going to be difficult. I mean, but generally speaking, you know, we respond to calls for service. People are calling and complaining, and they know who the violator is 9 times out of 10 because it's the neighbors calling because they can't get to sleep, or they have other issues with their pets, they have issues with PTSD, and we'll do our best to identify them. That is basically what we can do.
So I noticed the ordinance does allow for a permit process. So if there's some sort of a religious celebration or other memorial, people are allowed to get permission from the city to launch these fireworks. I think that's just a very important part of this.
Mr. Mayor, one other point for the benefit of council, and that is that under the previous law that was in effect, the city was preempted from regulating the discharge of fireworks for 30 days. So so we're going from 30 days to 11 days, and if council passes the ordinance, it's with the other stipulations that are included in the ordinance. So this state law and the ordinance, if approved, was intended to restrict the use of fireworks limited to 11 days, maximum of 11 days out of the year.
Your Honor, just one more question if I can. So
Yes.
what about the fine? So somebody, I think it's outrageous, $1,000. It's kind of ridiculous. But then, so if they get a ticket and fine $1,000, are we going to go after them and sue them for it? I mean, how's that going to work?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
The case would be filed in the 43rd District Court, and we would deal with it just like we deal with any other case.
So like a collection agency or something? I
No,
mean,
no. The fines and costs imposed by the court are just like any other civil infraction.
so then it exponentially increases with putting it through the court system, right? I mean, if they're
No,
not.
I don't know that it increases. There could be late fees, default fees, things of that nature.
So
but
then
it's
if they
handled
don't-
like- It's handled like any other civil, like a speeding ticket.
So for the benefit of the public here that don't get speeding tickets for this, but, so then you get, and you don't pay it, then what? Then you're gonna get there's gonna be a warrant out for your arrest?
No, it's civil in nature. Civil infraction, by definition, is civil, punishable only by fines and costs. It's not subject to any jail time, and if a person doesn't pay fines and costs ordered to be paid by the court. They could be in default. Their driving privileges could be suspended, things of that nature.
Okay, other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. That leads us to, there were no other items that were asked to be brought forward.
Your Honor, I asked for G1 and 3 as well, so all of the ordinance.
Oh, okay. All right,
If that's
G1,
still okay.
G1 will be brought forward. G1 is ordinance number 2138, the noxious weeds. It's the second reading of this ordinance. Mrs. Marsh, can you give a report on ordinance number 2138?
Yes, per request of Councilor Grafstein at the council meeting of January the 14th, Assistant City Attorney prepared the attached proposed ordinance amendment.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, during the business meeting, we have to focus. There's too many side conversations and accumulated. I'm not able to hear the reports from the staff. So if you do have a conversation, you're welcome to go to the lobby, but please, during the business, you must be quiet. Thank you, Mrs. Marsh.
So this ordinance amends the noxious weed ordinance. These proposed changes were reviewed and commented on by members of our Environmental Citizens Committee, the Clinton River Watershed, and the Oakland County Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. The proposed changes update the definition of noxious weeds, deleting future reference to specific plants, instead referencing the Michigan Invasive Species Watch List. Other changes were to include and encourage native plantings and natural planned landscapes with guidelines to control weeds. One change has been made since the first reading, and that is to add a 3-day notice period for noxious vegetation, which would be grass, in accordance with the code enforcement policy. Staff and I recommend approval of ordinance 2138 upon second and final reading.
Thank you. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I move that council approve on second reading ordinance 2138, the noxious weeds ordinance.
Thank you. Is there support?
Your Honor,
Mr. Bliss?
a second.
Thank you. Motion was made by Councilor Grafstein, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bliss to approve on second reading ordinance number 2138 regarding noxious weeds. Is there discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I just want to commend Councilor Grafstein for bringing forward this forward.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may speak about this for a moment?
Please, the floor is yours.
So this came about for a number of reasons. We need to change with the times. We have a lot of ordinances on the books that aren't being enforced and probably shouldn't be enforced, but they just lie dormant until someone gets a ticket or someone brings it to our attention. And in this situation, it was brought to my attention that milkweed is a noxious weed in our city. And for those of you who know anything about butterflies, you'll know that that's what feeds the butterflies. And I didn't want this to be like, okay, well, we'll just take out milkweeds and we'll continue on. I wanted this to be something that is going to change with the times. And I commend Mrs. Marsh and her staff for the work that went into this. It would have been really simple to say, okay, take out milkweeds, anything else. But I was contacted. I found some other places to look into. I talked to the invasive species people, and I spoke with other people who know these things. And I think they did something that was quite comprehensive, so that going forward, if you have milkweeds, you're not going to get arrested. You're not going to get a ticket. And if something else does come up, comes to our attention that, hey, this is part of it, we can look into it. But we have a butterfly station in our city. Someone in the city has a plaque. So I think it's great, and it's something that with the environmental committee, we are looking at different things that we can do in the city, where we can have the native plants, where we can have rain gardens, or where we can have pollinator-friendly plants here. And milkweeds are a big one. So I think it would be pretty hypocritical for me to say, hey, I'd like to plant milkweed in the public parks, but you on private land, you can't have it. So I appreciate the time that everyone has taken with this, and I encourage everyone in the city to feed the bees and feed the butterflies, plant your milkweed, and find out what else is pollinator friendly in the city that will help us, because it helps the environment. And for everybody who gardens in the city, if you are gardening and you're growing vegetables that you want to grow, even, we're not going to eat the milkweed, all the pollinators work together. And when they're busy and happy, they make really good food. And they make it pretty. It's all attractive, so thank you. I fully support this ordinance change.
Thank you. I love the wording of this ordinance. It's really well-written, prose even. Under the intent and purpose, it starts, "A variety of landscapes add diversity and richness to the quality of life in Madison Heights." And of course, all the other words are so well-written. I thought it was interesting. Maybe I'm just fatigued, but there's this small issue that I enjoy it. Our newest employee, Barry Hicks, the economic director, he gets a role under this ordinance, and he's given a new title. Did you catch that? His new title is the Commissioner of Noxious Weeds. So I hope he adds he's the newest employee, so before you print his business cards, maybe you should add Development Director and Commissioner of Noxious Weeds. I'm sorry.
No,
That was an aside, but that should not undermine the deep level of professionalism and flexibility that this ordinance brings to our city. So thank you, Councilor Grafstein. Thank you for your leadership and guidance. Are there other comments?
Your Honor?
Yes,
We
sir.
insist that that be included on his title. So,
You'll love it.
Other comments? All right, we can vote on this ordinance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. There was another item brought forward. It's G3. It's another ordinance on the agenda. So we're going to handle that now. It's ordinance number 2139. It's the second reading of the solid waste disposal areas, recycling and composting facilities, and the pickup of residential waste ordinance. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, in accordance with the recommendation of our Environmental Legal Counsel, City Council is considering the amendment to a solid waste ordinance, Ordinance 2139. This ordinance pertains to the hours, noise, litter, dust, and other related issues pertaining to the solid waste disposal areas, recycling and composting facilities, and pickup of residential waste. Staff and I recommend City Council approve on the second and final reading, Ordinance 2139.
Thank you. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I move that council approve on second reading ordinance 2139 regarding solid waste, recycling, yard waste, and composting facilities.
Thank you. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Corbett?
support.
Thank you. Motion was made by Councilor Grafstein, seconded by Councilman Corbett to approve on second reading ordinance 2139, the solid waste disposal areas, recycling and composting facilities, and pickup of residential waste ordinance. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would be comfortable maybe establishing a little record of this ordinance with just some brief discussion of the intent of the council in this matter.
Thank you.
We are looking to, as time goes on, the whole concept, whether it's public or private, of recycling and rededicating and repurposing products could come up in a number of locations, several more prominent than others. But in any event, we have to recognize in advance the potential negative impacts that those activities, no matter how noble or no matter how helpful for society in general, could have. And so we need to regulate that, especially in a community like Madison Heights, which is relatively densely packed, urbanized. So I like the idea that we are getting in front of this before this industry takes off on us, before it is quite literally in our backyard, and be able to stake out in advance to businesses or enterprises, whether public or private, that there are certain regulations and certain boundaries that we would expect that this activity to maintain. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to point out that the penalties that are on this is exceedingly less than, so if you light up a firecracker or M80, you're paying $1,000, but here, which is a resident, right? It's just an ordinary citizen. But when you're talking going after corporations, it's $100 or $500. So
I think there's an important distinction that the $1,000 firework fine is mandated by state law.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But
And this just reminds us of our fines are generally reasonable.
But on the same token, again, you have a resident, a citizen, and versus a corporations which can't afford something like that. And I just think I'd like to have seen a higher penalty for that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
is that something that we can visit down the road?
Mr.
Potential
Mayor?
increase?
Yes, please.
Ordinance violations, we are limited to them being 90-day misdemeanors for a criminal violation and fines up to $500, period.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, then the fireworks, because that is state, that is $1,000, so that is not us at the city level take with that. It is state. But this is an ordinance, which is a city ordinance, and that binds us to a maximum of the 500 of the 90 days. So it's a difference in between what the state mandates in one situation and where council is limited in our role. Even if we would like to increase that, we are not allowed to because of what our role is. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And the only reason why the authority of the city was expanded relating to the state fireworks laws because the state authorized it. And the only thing I can think of off the top of my head to analogize it to would be a super drunk type situation where the state legislature authorized the city to adopt a super drunk ordinance which would increase the penalty for a conviction for super drunk from 93 days, which is the max under the drunk driving law, to 182 days, and that's because the legislature authorized it.
Okay, thank you.
I think my brother Jeff wanted to add something to it.
Good evening, Mr. Sherman.
I hope everyone had a nice holiday.
Thank you.
The penalties in this ordinance are more severe. They're criminal penalties. They carry 90 days in the county jail and/or fines of $500 plus court costs. There are only 3 areas that are civil infractions, and those pertain to the residents. So when you talked about the fireworks, those were civil infractions. Can't go to jail for those, only get fined, and we will work with the residents depending on the facts and circumstances of the case. But violations of this ordinance could send someone to the Oakland County Jail. So they are more severe than the fireworks ordinance.
Which they should be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I just was going to say, I don't labor under the legal counsel's having to, to justify the state legislature. I gave up trying to justify their rationale before. However, it's like anything else, whether we're dealing with regulating fire risk or whether we're regulating fireworks. If you don't want to impose the fine, then you can't impose the law, then you got to live with those consequences. It's unfortunately just I gotcha. I hear you completely, but I'm not going to not try to do something on the one and not do it on the other. I think they're both worthy goals. So that's all. Thank you, sir.
So one last question then. So if Councilman Soltis or any of our residents felt that we should increase the penalties or make a change, then the proper venue would be at the state level and not at the city level. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Other discussion regarding ordinance 2139? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. There's nothing else that's been brought forward ahead in the agenda, so we can go back to the regularly scheduled agenda. That brings us to item B, that's meeting open to the public. If anyone would like to address City Council, this is the opportunity to do so now. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please give your name, address, and any affiliation you may have, especially if you work or are appointed by the city. Welcome back.
My name is Alice McCaig. I live at 612 West Girard Avenue. I want to thank the council for 3 things tonight. Number 1, for the Gun Violence Awareness Day. As a member of a family who was touched by gun violence, I really appreciate the city taking this issue up and trying to make people more aware of gun safety and how we can keep our children safe. Number 2, as a 20-year resident of the city who also happens to be a lesbian, I appreciate the fact that you have spoken in favor of diversity by declaring June to be Pride Month. And number 3, as the owner of Monarch Way Station number 20307, I appreciate the fact that I don't have to hide my milkweed anymore.
Right. Good evening.
Hi there, my name is Emma Green. I live at 1583 Westbrook Drive, and I'm here to talk about the Pride Resolution.
Welcome.
So this was something that I obviously brought to the council last year, and I'm glad to see it coming back again. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, it's obviously important that my elected officials recognize my identity, recognize the struggles that my community has gone through, and it's just genuinely so important to me that the city has gone out of their way to continuously do this and tried to make this an inclusive and welcoming place for people of all walks of life. Something I'd like to ask you to do is to take it a step further. I know that it's been brought up in the past, the idea of raising a pride flag above the city, whether it's through the means of raising it above city council or the city municipal area, or even just adding an additional flagpole in this room before the council chambers, I think would be very important. Something even stronger, if I could ask, is if you were to add a flagpole in the city council chambers, to leave that up year-round. Honestly, queer people don't just come out in June, so it would be very much appreciative to see that year-round. I know it's always kind of the general rule to bring out your pride flags in June, be welcoming, especially of the community then, but it would be very nice to see that kind of activity from the city year-round, because that inclusivity is always welcome, especially in the cold winter months when we're far, far away from Pride. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else? Oh, yeah, please come on up.
Hi. My name is Angie Boccaccio. I'm at 1595 Elliott. We've been in Madison Heights for about 17 years. So I just wanted to thank you again for adopting the Gun Violence Proclamation Awareness. It's something that we tend to think of as being an inner city, a Detroit issue, but it is definitely a Madison Heights issue. As a nation and as a state, Michigan is a sportsman paradise. Guns are part of our culture. We are outdoor enthusiasts, we're hunters, we're shooters, etc. So the purpose here is to make a safe gun ownership is really the goal that we're getting towards. And it does affect us. As recently as last week, one of our schools was on lockdown because a child had access to a weapon, posted a picture on Facebook. Obviously, it was considered a threat, and our students were considered at risk enough to lock down the entire school, put all of those students and parents in concern. So it's an important issue, nationally and locally. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Council. John Zimick, 29263 Testmer Court. Madison Heights residence for 20 years. Spent 13 years as president of UAW Local 174, one of the biggest local in Detroit. 87 facilities, 3 GM units. I recently, in March, took on a job down at the UAW on the staff. Here to speak on the ongoing issue of Boomer. I know at first it seemed like a real tragedy, but when the facts came out, I've been following this pretty closely. I can tell you a personal experience. I've had a cat that I had to put down 3 years ago. His name was Terminator. Lived to be 22 years old. And the worst day of my life is the day I had to take him in and put him down. Our pets are, in some cases, just like our children and our family. I'm going to ask the City Council to reconsider all the facts and reunite Boomer with his owner and do the right thing.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Would no one else like to speak? Oh, sir, come on up. Your name, please?
Brenda Zach, 49235 Tonquist Drive, Clinton Township. Business owner, Harrison Township.
Welcome.
I am also, in regards to Boomer,
Thank
I understand that the standard of proof of civil case is by the predominance of the evidence, meaning that it was more likely that something occurred in a certain way. I would like to just bring up a few points and questions to think in regards to this case. and some of you have pets of your own and have somebody that you love that has a pet. With that being said, I would like you to ask yourselves, as being these points and questions, how would you feel? What would you want people to do for me if this case affected me or someone I love? Boomer and Chubbs were fence mates for years without ever having an incident. There has recently been a coyote warning area in the area issued by the city of Madison Heights, which was never mentioned. Boomer was also in the house and only out of his owner's sight for less than 20 minutes before Chubbs was attacked by something. Doesn't this make sense to you that the dog would push his way out of a house, jump a fence, attack a dog that he has been fence mates with for years for no reason? Whatever attacked Chubbs ripped his stomach open. This is not indicative of a dog attack. It is more likely that a coyote or another animal did this. Could it even be possible that a hawk could have caused this kind of injury? The owners of Chubbs stated that Boomer was in their yard, but not anywhere near Chubbs. He was sniffing around in a totally different area of the yard. Doesn't that make sense? Does that make sense to you? That Boomer would attack Chubbs and then just walk away and investigate in other parts of the yard where Chubbs was still alive and trying to drag himself across the yard? Boomer has white fur, mouth, face, chest, feet. There was not one spot, blood or blood stain on him shortly after Chubbs was attacked. Does that make sense to you? If Boomer ripped open Chubbs' stomach, he did not have any blood or any blood stains on him. After Boomer illegally being confiscated, Boomer was under numerous tests and professionals in aggression and behavior. He has passed each test with flying colors. Does it make sense to you that Boomer could have intimidated such a brutal attack on Chubbs, but yet pass all of these aggression and behavioral tests? All I am asking is that you or anyone else listening think about these things and ask yourselves those questions. If there was anything that you could do or anybody that you could talk to that can help try to change the situation, please do. Since the standard of proof of this case is based on the predominance of the evidence, it seems to me that it's more likely than not that something else attacked Chubbs, not Boomer. Boomer has been taken away from his owner for over a year now. His owner loves him and misses him dearly. As you see the pictures that I produced to every one of you, if it is time for Boomer to go home, get him back to his owner. He belongs with Justin. The city of Madison
Thank you. Your
Heights.
time's up, ma'am. Thank you.
Stop embarrassing yourself and send him home.
Good evening, sir. Your name, address?
Joel Kirsch, 4700 Paisley Court, West Bloomfield, Michigan.
Welcome.
Also coming to speak on behalf of Boomer. Larry, nice to meet you. Spoken with you several times on the phone. I've followed this case for 6 months, and like John said, as an animal lover, and I've always had animals my whole life, they mean the world to me. Following this case, seeing the hardship of somebody that would go to the length to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, have rallies, have 7,000 people following, getting involved to try and save their best friend, their dog. To some people, that doesn't seem like much. To others like me, it's everything. I couldn't sleep if something like this happened to me. I would be beside myself, especially with the facts. I ask that you do the right thing. We just the other day, I'm watching the news and I see some guy driving, takes a dog out of his car, puts it in a driveway and tries to leave. Those are the type of people that we have to go after. Those are the type of people that abuse animals that aren't good for society. I'm busy servicing one of my businesses. I'm driving down the street. I see a dog. It's chained up. For every day I go, every morning I see the dog. He's got a 10-foot chain at the most. Whether it's raining, whether it's 0 degrees, the dog's chained up. Lives in a house that looks like somebody just moved in and a squatter, for lack of better words. These are the people that aren't taking care of animals. These are the people we got to watch out for. These are the people that we have to convict. These are the people we have to take those dogs away from and give them a home. A guy that spends all this money to try and protect an animal at the end of the day, you want to save Boomer. You want to maybe send him to Park Avenue, which is great. We're going to save Boomer. But we're saving him because he's innocent also. And at this point, he deserves to just go back to the owner. The owner's a young man who's more than learned the lesson of life and what a city can do. And at this point, I don't think you have to worry about him. He's not a negligent dog owner. He's not somebody that teaches his dog to fight. I know there's some story, Larry, you were sharing with me about he killed a bunny. Well, you know what? With all due respect, every dog I've ever owned chases squirrels, chases bunnies. It doesn't mean they're violent creatures. It doesn't mean they're bad animals. This dog has been in confinement for a year. Luckily, people have paid enough money so that he's had a good place at least for the last year while this thing is resolved. But this thing can be resolved in a nice manner where you get positive.
Thank you, sir. It's been 3 minutes. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice time.
Good evening. Your name and address, please?
Lee Causey, 3950 Huron, Dearborn Heights.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, what I have to say is, Boomer jumped that fence to save Chubbs. I think it was a coyote that actually got Chubbs, and he saved the other dog's life too. If anything, Boomer's a hero, and he deserves to go back to his daddy. Please, please make the brave choice tonight. Have a heart. Don't be heartless. Please. This dog has feelings like you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, all of you. They have feelings. They're just, they have emotions. They have hearts. That was Boomer's neighbor. He tried to save him. You have a coyote problem in this city, and you admit it. That, there's been, how many dogs have been murdered by coyotes? Check and see. Boomer, if he's anything, he's a hero. He saved the other dog. The other dog was not moving, was scared. He didn't go after the other dog. He didn't even kill Boomer. Boomer was dying. Chubbs. I'm sorry. I'm just so worked up about this. I cried my heart out for this dog. He's not even mine, but I know if it was my dog, I don't know what I'd do. I don't know what I'd do. You guys, you gotta have a heart. He had no blood on him. He couldn't have touched that little Chubbs at all. And I think he was trying to protect both of them, but it was too late for Chubbs by the time he got over that fence. But he chased that coyote, so that coyote didn't get the other dog too. And like I said, if he's anything, he's a hero. And you guys need to just have a heart. Anybody with any common sense could figure this out. It doesn't take much to figure it out. If a dog would have done that damage to little Chubbs, he'd been for a while. His paws would have been for a while. Why prosecute an innocent animal that's a hero? If nothing else, he's a hero. And Justin, that's his daddy. He needs to go home to his daddy. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Name and address, please.
My name is Robin Sheehan, 237 Walnut, Wyandotte, Michigan.
Welcome.
Thank you. Not only is Boomer innocent, but Boomer, not having any blood, seized illegally, violating Justin's rights right there, let this dog go home. We've been here week after week after week. If you don't want to see us anymore, make a resolution tonight and let him go home to Justin, and you won't see us anymore. I promise you, I will not be at your podium again regarding Boomer. I promise you, most of us want the same thing. Let Boomer go home to Justin. This is getting ridiculous. Week after week after week. Then you go on Facebook and you do your thing. We all have a right to say what we believe. But you tell us week after week, you can't tell us anything. You can't answer questions. I had legitimate questions in regards to specific things about what protocol have you raised for your city so this doesn't happen to another resident's dog. I got nothing. I was told you couldn't respond. You can respond. Make a resolution. Send Boomer home to Justin tonight. He will move tomorrow. I will give him a house to move into tomorrow. We will have a van there. He will be out of your city. Please send Boomer home. Because we know that the attorney for you said the city has to approve this. It has to go through the city council and the mayor. We know this. We are not uneducated people up here. We are very much educated. As a matter of fact, one of the nurses had to go out and help one of the citizens who had fallen at a UAW meeting and sliced his head open, as one of your police officers brought him out and asked for help. Who was there? Boomer supporters. And we answered. So let Boomer go home. This is getting ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Your name and address, please.
Shelley Lawrence, 47475 Shelby Township. If Boomer was so vicious, you see all the time on Facebook, if the cops, I'm super nervous, so listen. And now I'm going to cry too because, like everybody said, it's so upsetting. People get called for people get called for dogs coming. What's the first thing they do with a vicious dog? The cops go in there and the dog is vicious and, it's a pit bull. Shoot the dog. So if Boomer is so vicious, then why didn't the cops just shoot him? Boomer's in the back of the place, circling in the back of the thing, being a good dog. He's a good dog. So the cop was not threatened by him. He's just thinking, he's a good dog. If he was a vicious dog killing chubs, he's a good dog. He's not vicious, and so he didn't shoot him. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Your name and address?
My name is Sharon, and thank you for listening to me again tonight. I drove 2.5 hours to get here by 7:30 so that I could speak about my friend Boomer.
From where? From what community?
Thank you, Mayor. The person I believe that can help Boomer the most is Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman, I have heard, is the person who has condemned Boomer to death. Whether it's a fact or not, if it's not, I would like to hear. If it is, I would like to know. Mr. Sherman, is this on your shoulders or not?
Can you direct your comments to the mayor, please?
Mr. Mayor, oh, you just answered my question.
You can direct your comments to the chair.
Sharon, all comments have to go through the chair of the meeting, whether it's me or anyone else. I'm the chair tonight.
I got the point. I might be 80 years old, but I'm not stupid. So anyways, this dog has been cooped up for almost a year. Over a year. Get busy. Take care of something other than library carpeting. If you didn't spend all your money keeping this dog and hiring an attorney to putting down, you'd have more money for your carpeting and your library. This is Boomer, Mr. Sherman, and this is Justin. I know you won't look at us, but this is Boomer, and this is Justin. Does this look like a dog who's gonna kill somebody? Come on. Put your big boy panties on and let this dog go home. I'm sick of coming here on Monday nights, and I'm sick of looking at you. So let this dog come home, so I can stay home and watch TV. You got it? Thank you. Before my 3 minutes are up, sir, I'll give it to someone else.
Thank you, Mrs. Stuckey of Sterling Heights. Would anyone else like to speak? Good evening. Name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Kim Hallenveld, and I'm at 27728 Delton Street in Madison Heights. I just want to say one thing. I think what the dangerous dog law is what needs to be changed immediately is part of the major problem with this whole thing, is the dangerous dog law. Because of the fact that Boomer was in the yard. Okay, but I'm not going to elaborate too much on that. It just does concern me that Chubbs was cremated. And I don't know why, if somebody instructed the family to do that, or they, whatever, something, it could have proven everything, or it could have exonerated immediately, but that just never sat well with me. I'm not sure if anything underhanded went on there, but it would have certainly proven Boomer's innocence. But the one thing I do want to say is that there seemed to be a lot of bashing that went on with Boomer's owner. Okay, so he's made some mistakes. I'm a pet owner, and I've screwed up many times with not keeping up with my pet's vaccines. We learned from these things. He's obviously a hard-working citizen. I know that you referred to him as a dishonorable man. I'm sorry, I don't see how that's so. Like I said, we've all made mistakes, and I just want to say that there's some bad people that really deserve to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, like the gentleman before me indicated, some people who do some bad things to animals. If you ever found anybody to deal with, like a monster like Alexander Girth, who killed Sterling, you'll see what a monster is. And that kind of a monster would deserve your full throttle of force and hate. Okay, Justin does not deserve whatever it is that you've got against him. I really feel there's some vindictiveness going on. Don't know why, what he's done to y'all. But my God, don't take it out on him. Don't take it out on Boomer. There's no reason why that dog can't go home to that man. He's ready to leave this city. Why do you care anymore? He's going to go. Let him go. I thank you for everything that you've done so far, but I'd like you to see us through to the end. And I want you to help us. I want you to let the dog go home. I want you to finish help us achieve the goal that we have started out, and let him go home to Justin. Think about all the other horrible people out there that deserve to be persecuted and prosecuted by this. There's a lot of them, bad people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palmaville. Of course, at the end. Good evening. Your name, please, address?
My name is Rose Atkins. First of all, you can see that none of us are going away. We're not happy with the decisions you guys are making. I want to let you know that in my lifetime, and I'm sure in all of your lifetimes, you guys made a mistake. Are you going to punish Justin for one mistake that he made? He doesn't make a lot of money. He didn't have the money to do what he was supposed to do for that dog. I understand that's a mistake. But I made mistakes in my life, and I know that you guys have too. And why should Justin, just because of this little mistake he made by not giving his dog shots, forgetting to lock the door to the dog, think that the dog got out? Boomer did not do this. You all know Boomer didn't do this, but you insist on doing this to this dog. And Sherman said that you guys are gonna decide, that you guys have the final say on what happens to Boomer. If that's true, please let this dog go. That's all we ask. You'll never see us again. We'll take Justin. We'll take Justin out of the state if we have to with Boomer. But get the hell away from here. Just let him go. Just let him go. Let him go home with his dad. You know, his dad, Sherman knows, when Justin was in court, all he did was cry his eyes out. He's on Facebook now saying he's severely depressed. If something happens to Justin, it's on all of your hands.
Thank you. Your name and address, please?
Danielle Bynum, 5870 Waterford. And I want to address the mayor and the council to make a resolution tonight and send Boomer home. Justin will move tomorrow. We have trucks, we have people. We're not going away. We'll move his butt out of here. He doesn't want to be here. Save your political butts, because it's voters' time. It's voting time, 2020. And a lot of people will not be voting for you. We will back whoever runs against you. And Mr. Mayor, I would like to know, let me get this pulled up. You have been emailed several times by several people, including myself, but I never got a response. But you did respond to someone, and you said that we should direct our communications to the prosecutor. I want to know who that is. I want him to answer.
This is just the time for the public to speak. It's not a question and answer period.
When is there a question and answer? Or can you put the answer on Facebook for us tonight? Can I have an answer, or question and answer session?
You have 2 more minutes to speak.
2 more minutes. Let me get something. I'll just stand here and show you pictures of people that are out there protesting every week, like my 8-year-old son. He wants Boomer to go home. He has seen me cry at night because Boomer is not home. We have dogs at home. He asks, why can't you look at me when I'm up here? I mean, everybody else is. Is it embarrassing that you can't do the right thing? I hope everybody moves out of this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, no, sir, you may not speak. You already had 1 chance. Would anyone else like to speak for a first time? Good evening, ma'am. Your name and address?
I'm from Melvindale, Michigan.
Your name? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Connie Fisher.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher.
And you know, people from across the country and even other countries are watching this case and know how wrong it has been. You have ruined the city's reputation, and many don't even want to spend their money in your city no longer. Many want out of your city because who's to say that the same thing is not going to happen to their dogs? There was no eyewitness, no blood on Boomer, coyotes in the area. The so-called witness changed the story and didn't see anything. Boomer should have been released a year ago. Why are you lying again and saying you can't do anything, just like you lied before, saying that you couldn't discuss the case but got on Facebook and discussed it? Boomer needs to go back to Justin. Don't punish him for nothing.
Thank you. Good evening. Your name and address, please?
Carolyn Roberts. I live in Warren.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
I just wanted to make a couple points. On your post, you had stated that there were only like 2 or 3 Madison Heights residents that are involved in this. That's not a fact. As I said before, because my daughter and her family live in Madison Heights, many are afraid of retaliation. They really are. But they are all aware of the facts. They are paying attention, and they are going to take action. This dog is innocent. And if you think we're all from different cities, which we are, it's because we don't just love the animals in our cities. We love the animals in all cities, in all states, in all the world. And regarding your response to the emails that have been sent, you said the federal judge acknowledged on the record that City Council has zero legal authority to intervene. Now, we've been advised otherwise. I do believe otherwise. You're the mayor, aren't you, the highest position in the city? If that's a fact that he did that, if you could please point me in that direction, I'd love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Your name and address, please.
Good evening. Linda Kay, Armada, Michigan.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having us this evening. And also, I do want to thank you for taking steps forward to try to resolve this regarding Boomer. Last week, we know there was a court case regarding Boomer, and in that courtroom, the judge asked Jeff Sherman if Madison Heights was in agreement to settle the case, at which time he said yes. We are not aware if all the council members are aware of this, because we heard that there was not one representative from the city of Madison Heights present other than the lawyers Jeff Sherman and Holly Battersby. There were also several emails to you, Mr. Mayor, asking to do a resolution to release Boomer to Justin as soon as Justin moves out of Madison Heights. A return email from Mayor Hartwell stated that even if he was in complete agreement with all of us, which I hope you are, that you have absolutely no ability to do anything about this, and it would not make a difference. So, since you don't think it could make a difference, we'd like to ask you to make a resolution right now and see if it makes a difference, because we believe it can. There's an untruth somewhere. There's an untruth either with the lawyers to the city, or there's an untruth with the city to us. So we also know that this is a civil case that ends in GZ, like this one, is a general civil case, and they are not decided by the prosecutors, but by the city of Madison Heights. So again, Mayor Hartwell, since there is absolutely no harm in doing a resolution, since it will make no difference, please do a resolution now. Release Boomer to Justin. Just let Justin leave your city. He wants to leave your city. Let Boomer leave your city. Okay? They're going to cause no harm here. And think of the positive publicity, huge step for you. Doing the right thing, righting a terrible, terrible wrong. This would give you and your city great publicity. And you know what? We'll stand behind you also if you write this. We stand for what's right. We will come alongside you and we will say thank you publicly. I will. Great. Thank you. And also, Councilwoman Grafstein, thank you for caring about the environment very much. And also, because you are so open to I'm not sure of the lettering, LGBT or, the whatever that is, which is wonderful. You're very accepting. Open your minds up to the dog breeds and don't discriminate.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Martha Bailey from Shelby Township. As most of you know, we have supporters throughout the entire United States and many other countries, even South Africa, India, Germany, Canada. But right now, I have a letter that from a lady in Alabama she would like me to read. She says, I'm writing on behalf of Boomer. I was just devastated to hear that Boomer wasn't going home with his dad, who obviously loves him with all his heart. Whenever a human commits a crime, they are persecuted off of evidence. I'm somewhat confused because I would think that it would be the same with an animal. To my understanding, there wasn't any blood whatsoever on Boomer. No, if he committed this crime, wouldn't you think there would be blood present on him somewhere? It is just not possible that he would clean himself up after killing another animal. It is unfair and unjust to do this to this innocent baby. I've cried because it hit home with me. You see, I too am the owner of a pit bull and a pit lab mix, and I know firsthand the discrimination these dogs face on a daily basis. Had Boomer been a different type of dog, I'm sure due to lack of evidence, he would have been back with his owner. I plead with you to please do what is right and free Boomer and let him go back to Justin. Some of us consider our animals, our babies, our family, and it hurts, just like losing a child or a family member. Please don't make us hurt any longer. Do the right thing. Let Boomer go home. I send my love to you, Boomer and Justin from Alabama, and that's by Casey Reeves. And I am still convinced that there are enough fair-minded, honest, and God-fearing council members to send Boomer home to Justin where he belongs. No evidence but a judge can put an innocent lives in danger. As long as we have that judges with that mindset making decisions, most of us are at risk. To me, this is not the American way. I always heard, and I grew up, innocent until proven guilty. And as far as you, Mayor, I'm not understanding it. Are laws that different in the United States? My sister is a mayor, Eva, in Loretta, Tennessee, and she says that you could have stopped this right away, that you could have stopped all this bull crap in the bud before it ever got down a year down the road. Now, I don't know if things are so different in Madison Heights. I know if it is, I wouldn't want to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, all. My name is Jana Eggert.
Welcome.
I am 30486 Winthrop Drive. I've lived in Madison Heights for the last 20 years. And I may say it's a pleasure again being with you wonderful women and gentlemen representing Boomer. I stand with you because I too have a dog. And I cannot imagine anyone taking my dog from my family without any proof evidence. It would just devastate us. And I think our council see your pain, understand the struggle to set this dog free so that he and his owner can move on. And our taxpayer dollars can go to things we need it to go to. We have 2 school districts in a small city. One of the districts is struggling. I mean, I've substitute taught in the city for the last 14 years. I understand the struggles of our students, our teachers, and there's some ways to see that our taxpayer dollars are being spent in this fashion. It is appalling. And I hope that you guys come up with a plan conducive enough to set this dog free and let the city move on. It is a distraction for what you guys have at stake. Truly it is. Am I right or wrong? Yeah. It's a lot of money being raised. I would also like to say this on behalf of my children. They've asked me to stand here today, to ask the mayor, to ask the city council, to think about ways to get this thing behind us, to set this dog free. Boomer is a beautiful dog. Yes. And I think if this dog was vicious, by now it would attack another dog wherever it is right now, right? Yes. Okay? It would attack someone else that's taking care of it as well. So what is the use of holding this dog hostage? Political? Yes. Political? It's a waste of our time, a waste of our taxpayer dollars, and I'm just furious. I've never been so angry, but I am. So I just want you guys to know your mothers, brothers, sisters, fathers. Perhaps some of our council people do have dogs at home, cat, animals. Would they like the same to happen to them? I don't think so. So I hope we can move on. The Friends of Madison Heights Seniors will be hosting an event June 3rd, the Thursday public hearing, June 18th at 7 p.m. I would love to invite each of you to please show up, and let's take this to a different level in this city. Let's get our citizens involved. I don't see many of us here tonight, but I guarantee you they're talking. And time is over. Let's move on. Let's unite our city, unite the community, and set it up.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else wants to speak, so Mr. Kirsch?
Okay, Ken Thweet, Thweett. I don't want to give my address because I want.
That's fine, Ken. We know you're a resident of Madison.
Okay, I don't want any more harassment that I'm getting from animal control. You've been driving by my house for at least once a day, probably, to see what's going on in my house, because I do have a cat at home. And he's the one that killed my cat because he did not do his job like he should. Now, let me start off here. I don't want to hold you guys up because I know you got things to do. Okay, I appreciate, Mayor, at the last meeting to inform us that we lack speaking ability. You also said we lack our litigation. I can't even say the word because I'm not an attorney. But it was a put down as far as I'm concerned after I heard it. And we will never be as good as you. We don't have the education or the experience you have. But we are trying to improve, Mayor, if you just give us a chance. You also changed the opening to the public, which makes it tougher for citizens to come and speak because they got to sit through the whole meeting. And it was done probably for that purpose, even though you're going to say it's not. Now, the city manager, she either doesn't know her job or she's not doing her job. Now, the city manager, your obligation, you don't have to talk to her, I talk to him. Obligation is to be in charge of all departments because you're the city manager. And if there's any problem with the department and somebody lets you know, it's your job to get it corrected. But you're not doing that. Animal control told me that it's not worth taking lost animals on the phone. I called 3 times, my cat is dead. I called 3 times and nobody ever gave me a call back. 3 times within 3 weeks. And I told about a lot of seniors in low income don't have computers. We don't know. I don't even know how to go on Facebook. There's no computer. I'm sorry, I don't know, but I don't know. He told me he didn't care. He said he's in charge and he was given the badge by the chief. Now that's a pretty bad attitude. That's what I'm getting at. His attitude is discrimination and harassment has been unreal. But nobody has done anything to correct the situation. I understand where he's coming from. He's new. He's got some power. Power in the wrong hands is very dangerous. And so what we need to do is have a meeting with him. I'll be glad to be there too. Or not. If you not want me there, then at least let me know if anything's being done. I don't want to be harassed. I've been here in the city a long time. And I don't want to be harassed by some animal control. And like I said, the lack of my cat being dead is bad enough as it is. I had my cat 4 years. If they would have responded, maybe my cat would be still alive. If he slipped out of the door, they can slip out. And he stated he didn't care about discrimination, which is pretty bad. And now this weekend, I talked to Suzette. Now, I'm not going to say what we talked about or what we said, what we didn't say, but I did talk to her. And I was so informed, I'm not saying it's true because I don't get involved in anything unless I know positively for sure. I was informed that Suzette or the Animal Control Holland, the jobs are not open to the public. Now, I don't know if that's true. Like I said, I'm not saying it's true until I know positively. But if it is, that's illegal in all the way. And it starts leaning towards nepotism. And
Ken, you have used 3 minutes. Do you have a final point to make?
Just a little bit, baby. Okay.
Please make your final point.
Okay. Just a little bit long. I would rather, release a guilty man than convict an innocent person. It's very important. Unfortunately, our society, I've seen it in law enforcement, our society sometimes just wants to get, or sometimes judges or prosecutors, they just want to get that little star in their head. And But a good investigator, like saying everything I got, what I got, a good investigator never releases all the stuff he's got off the side. Anybody who's been investigated knows that. So that's it. I appreciate it, Mayor.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Has anyone not spoken for a first time? All right. Mr. Kirsch, we're not going to allow second opportunities
I just want
tonight.
a quick follow-up, it's important. The young lady made a statement that caught my attention, and she said that Justin is very depressed. And I wear this tattoo on my arm. It says, Svi atatamidi ti. Howard, you'll always be with me. Svi was my brother. Svi suffered from mental depression, which is a major thing in society, and people are understanding it's not just a matter of I'm depressed, I don't feel good, I don't have enough money, wah. It's a chemical imbalance. When I hear that somebody is so depressed, and I can respect the fact that it could just be over their dog. And Mr. Sherman, you said something to me. You're concerned that if you let Boomer back to his owner, and Boomer got away and killed somebody, that you'd never, that who would they come back after? You know, who would they come back after? I understand what you're saying, but it's not fair. Just the same, what if something happens to a guy like Justin because he is so depressed over an issue like this? Consider the alternative. I wasn't going to come back up and speak after that amazing speech that lady
Thank you,
did.
Mr. Kirsch. Thank you.
But when it comes to depression, and as soon as I hear somebody say he's major depressed, it triggered that there's more to it than you and Mr. Hartwell, a young guy, mayor of the city, very young guy, very impressive. This could be your legacy. You could either be the guy that diffuses the situation, makes it go away, makes 7,000 people out of animal lovers, you know, appreciate what you did. Or you could have this haunting you for years and years and years. When it comes to re-election, you can see, and I don't know any of these people, but they've developed a force of 7,000, going to 10,000, going to 20,000 people. People are going to go throughout the city to businesses. It's not worth it. You could just diffuse the situation. Boomer's a pretty good dog. You see him on the videos. He's really a nice dog. I own a lot of dogs.
Okay. It's the final word. Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. All right, ma'am, meeting is closed to the public. Meeting is closed to the public. You have 10 seconds. It's one sentence. You get one sentence.
Okay. We're going to every house. We're going to go to every house to let them know what Madison Heights did. And we're also going, there's a movie going to be made about Boomer, and you guys are going to be the stars.
Great, very good. Thank you. All right, the meeting is closed to the public. We do have a brief statement. Ma'am, please sit down. No, you had your time to speak. Stop speaking. Stop speaking. Thank you. Mr. Sherman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The case has been settled. All of the parties have agreed to the settlement, which was placed on the record in federal court. The council has no legal authority whatsoever to intervene or interfere in this matter at all.
Thank you. All right. The next thing on the agenda are communications. We have two communications tonight. The first one is C1. It's the resignation from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Mrs. Marsh, is there a report?
Yes. Member of Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Jenna Uhas, has submitted her resignation from the board. She recommends that council accept the resignation and declare the seat vacant.
Thank you. What's the wish of City Council? What's the wish of City Council on this matter? Ma'am, you need to leave the room.
Thank you, sir. I would.
Thank you, Ken. Ken, they have it handled. Thank you, Ken. The out-of-towners have left the room. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I move that the council accept with regret the resignation of Jenna Uhas
Did I say that correctly?
I think so.
Yeah.
From the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, declare vacant her seat and issue the appropriate resolution of thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. Is there support?
Your Honor.
Mr. Bliss?
I second.
Thank you. Motion was made by Councilman Corbett, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem, to accept the resignation of Jenna Uhase from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, declare the seat vacant, and issue a proclamation of thank you. Is there are there comments from council? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The motion carries. The next communication is C2. It's a resignation from the Environmental Citizens Committee. Mrs. Marsh, do you have a report?
Yes, member of the Environmental Citizens Committee, Linda Corbett, has resigned from the board. Staff recommends that council accept this resignation and declare the seat vacant.
Thank you. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I move that the council accept the resignation of Linda Corbett from the Environmental Citizens Committee and declare the seat vacant.
Thank you. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Gettings?
Support.
Thank you. A motion was made by Councilor Grafstein, seconded by Councilman Gettings, to accept the resignation of Linda Corbett from the Environmental Citizens Committee, declare the seat vacant, and let's issue a proclamation of thanks. Is there a discussion?
Just a procedure. I don't see any reason why I can't vote on this one, so.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's okay on this.
Yeah, there's no objection to that.
No.
Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the motion carries. The next item on our agenda, we can go to minutes, and we have two sets of minutes for review. The first minutes are from the special meeting of 5/13/19. What's the wish of City Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move that the council approve these minutes of the special council meeting of 5/13/19 as printed.
Thank you, sir. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Soltis?
Support, please.
Motion was made to adopt as printed the minutes from 5/13/19, the special meeting. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The motion carries. There's another set of minutes, the regular meeting of 5/13/19. What's the wish of council?
Your Honor,
Yeah.
I move that the council approve the regular city council meeting minutes of 5/13/19 as printed.
Thank you. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Grafstein?
second.
Thank you. Motion was made to adopt the minutes as printed from the regular meeting of 5/13/19. Is there discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The motion carries. Are we doing appointments tonight, or is that kind of in limbo until we talk to the clerk, maybe have another meeting?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
There are a couple we're going to have to move through over on the zoning board. We've had another resignation, so with your permission, and we also got a response from the school district on the question that was raised about Ms. Ott. So with your permission, I'd like to try and, did we accept the resignation from the zoning board last time? I don't remember. And I don't even remember who it was. Oh, no, it was the death of Mr. Holner. That's right, okay. Well then, Your Honor, I would move to appoint the only alternate at the moment, Gloria Thompson, to the vacant regular term, which will expire on February 28, 21.
Is there support? Support to promote Gloria Thompson from alternate to the full seat.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Soltis?
Support.
Our motion was made by Councilman Corbett, seconded by Councilman Soltis, to appoint Gloria Thompson, who's currently an alternate, for her to fill the vacant regular seat expiring 2/28/21. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I appreciate that staff looked into and confirmed with the Madison district that they are okay having 3 members of their board on one of our boards. However, I would prefer if we could see if we could have somebody else who is interested, and if there isn't anyone else interested, then absolutely I would give my full support to this, but I still have a concern with having 3 members of any board also being on other boards, whether they are school districts or one of our city boards.
You realize that, Your Honor, you realize that doesn't apply to this appointment, Ms. Thompson.
Isn't she on the board?
She's being promoted. We haven't added a third person of anything at the moment. She's on the board, we're moving her from the alternate to the regular seat. I don't understand what the confusion is.
But there would still be, by moving her up, there would be 3 voting.
2. The only other one is Mr. Kimball at the moment. You're
Oh,
questioning Ms. Ott.
I would take it back then.
You're questioning Mrs. Ott, who's
Okay, my
who's
apologies.
coming up
It
next.
is late and I am confused.
Points withdrawn, that's fine.
Point withdrawn.
Other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to appoint Sean Fleming, who is one of the applicants, I should say, to the seat, to the vacant, I gotta do this right here, to the vacant seat open, or that will expire on 2/28/22. This is an alternate seat.
To what board?
Oh, I'm sorry, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
support.
Thank you. Motion was made by Councilman Corbett, seconded by Councilman Gettings, to appoint Sean Fleming to the vacant term of the alternate seat on the ZBA, a term expiring 2/28/22. Is there discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
just a question. I have an application in front of me, and it lists the 2 advisory boards or commissions for which Mr. Fleming would like to apply for, and those were listed as Parks and Rec and the Multicultural Board. And so I just want to have an understanding, if he did apply to this on a separate application, then also what is the specific interest and background that he noted that would prompt us to want to put him into the ZBA?
Your Honor,
Yes, please.
he did apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals on February 13th, and that was before we did our new applications.
Although, Your Honor, if I might just throw in, I saw somewhere, as a matter of fact, unprompted, he did send an email expressing an interest in this job above and beyond what was on the application. So although you're about to lose my support for the changes to the, not to the appointment, for whatever it is you're trying to do with the committees, he is a resident, he is qualified, and he is interested. But as a matter of fact, he also sent in a couple of paragraphs why he wanted to serve on this board. So,
Your Honor, my question goes to the application I have in the packet, and maybe there are 2, and maybe the clerk can do that. But before I issue my support and my vote, the application I'm looking at says Parks and Rec and Multicultural.
Yeah, that's the only application
I know.
That's the only one that I have. So I just want to confirm that we also have an additional application. If not, I would encourage us to get one, and then we could bring it back.
I would have to, Your Honor, I'd have to go into the files and look. I don't have it in front of me.
I know, but there was something else. I don't know what happened to it. It may have been lost.
Because in the informational that I have in front, and others are clarifying that they have the same thing. I just want to make sure that he did apply before we appoint somebody to a board.
I will have to double check that. I do not have that in front of me.
Is there a reason that we have to vote tonight? Can this be delayed by 2 weeks so that we can?
No, there's not, Your Honor.
I agree with Mr. Bliss. I have the same as him. It's just
It might
Parks
have
and
been
Rec
an
and
email,
Multicultural.
I'm not sure,
I don't know why we don't have.
Your Honor, I'll withdraw that nomination.
Okay, it's withdrawn. Are there other,
I do, that, however, is no excuse for not appointing Ms. Ott to the zoning board as an alternate. She has made application, she's been waiting, we have vetted it, there has been extensive discussion, there's no reason for this council to refuse her a seat on the zoning board. So I would move to appoint Deborah Ott to an alternate seat on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term which will expire on February 28th, 2021.
what's the expiration? Is that certain?
February 28th, 21.
February 28th, 21.
22, right?
I've been
No,
advised it's
21,
22.
because that's the seat that we just moved
Correct.
From Gloria Thompson.
Gloria Thompson from, yes.
Okay, motion was made. Is there support?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Gettings?
support.
Thank you. A motion was made by Councilman Corbett, seconded by Councilman Gettings to appoint Deborah Ott to the newly vacated alternate seat on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And this seat expires 2/28/21. Is there discussion?
Your Honor?
Yes, please.
I would have to agree with Councilor Grafstein. I know we got notice from the Madison School District, but that's effectively a sub-quorum of the school board that would be meeting in the ZBA. I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't know that I could vote on it unless we had a legal opinion from our attorneys that clarifies that we're not having an issue there, because we do have an opinion on file that no more than 2 of us can sit on any one of our boards, that we can't even participate as a member of a public per se. We can't be there in the discussion if there are more than 2 of us, because it's a sub-quorum. So I don't feel very comfortable. I would just echo my agreement with Councilor Grafstein. If forced to vote on it tonight, I will vote no, but I would encourage us to have a legal opinion of our own that we could lean on, as opposed to just I believe it was an email from the Madison School District. And I don't believe from their attorneys either.
Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Yeah, with respect, the Mayor Pro Tem just misstated several points regarding the Open Meetings Act. There is no prohibition about 3 members of council being in a room or at a meeting together. The prohibition is if we begin to discuss an item of public policy and debate it to the other. As far as the prohibition against speaking at a meeting, that's a separate item, and that actually is not controlled under the Open Meetings Act. That has to do with the fact if I were to go to, let us say, what's a committee I'm not on, ECC, and I were to start speaking and saying you really should do this, that, and the other thing, that is the equivalent of your boss lecturing you and telling you what you should be doing. Those are separate items. It is not at all uncommon, for example, that the same folks who are the monitors in the who are the cafeteria monitors also serve on school boards. They also all serve on committees. You know, and there is the other point. The only thing that was asked was that an opinion be obtained. We actually obtained 2. Now that we're on the subject, we had 2 different superintendents. And the city attorney has, although not officially, and they can speak for themselves, has opined that, again, there is no violation. So, I mean, if you don't want to appoint Ms. Ott for some reason, then let's hear what your reason is. Why don't you want to appoint her? Because it's not for any, it's not for her being disqualified in any meaningful sense. You don't want 3 people on the Madison School Board, then say that. But I mean, there is no legitimate reason. There's no violation of the Open Meetings Act. There's no ethical violation. You know. And by the way, for the record, for several years prior to this past January, there were 2 members on the board because Mr. Kimball and Mr. Honer both served at the same time. So, that's all, sir.
Is there other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
I would just like to reiterate what I said, but with the correct people, I guess, this time. I am not comfortable with 3 members of a school board, either board, or of 3 members of the Arts Committee, or 3 members of the Environmental Committee, or just in general, if there are other willing participants. It sounds like Mr. Fleming has put in an interest, and maybe there are 2 alternative positions, and so they would each get 1. But I, at this point in time, would like to put an open call out there to see if there is someone else. And if there is no one in the city who is interested in this role, then I have no issue with this. I just want to make sure that we are letting other people have a chance at this. You know, that we don't have, well, everyone who's on the Arts Committee has also decided that they want to be on the Environmental Committee, and everybody on the Lamfair Board wants to be on the Crime Commission, or however it goes. So I would just like to see a little bit more diversity of our boards.
Other discussion?
Your Honor, just a point of clarification, Councilman Corbett had mentioned that there is a legal opinion, maybe if not formal, by our city attorneys on this. I'd love to hear that if that is available.
Okay, if it's available, we'll get you a copy, no question.
Your Honor?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, but no. These seats, the one in particular, Miss Ott's seat, has been open for 6 months. We have not closed anybody else out for it. The seat has been open. There are 2 seats, by the way. There are now 2. Both of the alternate seats are open. But again, I don't. There's something else going on here, candidly. There really is, because it's not what's at the table here. The lady, I'll be done in a minute, I promise. Miss Ott has done nothing wrong. She made an application. She was vetted excessively. This council asked for an opinion from and they got it, and now that's still not good enough. So I guess what is good enough then? And now we got to wait to go out and get other people to volunteer.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if Councilman Corbett has been searching and trying to get other people, and there is no one who is interested, then I will support this.
Your Honor, I sure didn't say that, now did I? I said that seat has been open for 6 months. Actually, longer a little bit, but, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I think we pride ourselves on our boards and our volunteers in the city. And here's a lady that's willing to serve, and I don't think it's fair that we deny her just because she happens to be on the school board. I don't think that's a bad thing. And again, we have a lot of volunteers in the city, and they all do a great job. And I think it's a crime if we turn them away. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. A motion was made for Deborah Ott to serve on the newly vacated alternate seat on the Zoning Board of Appeals. That alternate seat expires 2/28/21. It'll be a roll call vote. If you're in favor of appointing Ms. Ott, you say yes. If you oppose, you say no. Will the clerk take the vote?
Councilman Corbett?
Yes.
Councilman Gettings?
Yes.
Councilor Gravestein?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scott? Oh, sorry. Councilman Soltis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bliss?
I'll vote yes.
And Mayor Hartwell?
Yes, motion carries. Are there any other appointments?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I have one for ITAC on an open seat right now. Let me pull up really quick. I would move that we appoint Dale Gardner to the open seat on ITAC with a term that would expire 2/28/22.
What's the expiration?
2/28/22.
Alternate or the full seat? I'm sorry.
It's the full seat. It's a vacant full seat.
All right, motion was made. Is there support?
Your Honor?
Mr. Corbett?
Support.
Motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Bliss, seconded by Councilman Corbett, to appoint Dale Gartner to the ITAC board for the vacant term expiring 2/28/22. Is there discussion?
Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Just a note, his qualifications are really strong. He has a BS in computer science and 10 years working in the IT field as a software engineer. So we'll absolutely benefit from his expertise.
Thank you. Is there other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Any others? All right, there's no executive session scheduled for tonight, so before we adjourn, I'd invite any closing comments from council and staff. I guess we can begin with Mr. Corbett.
Just a couple of quick items, actually maybe just one quick item. Thank you very much to Ms. Marsh, to Corey, to the DPS, to the police volunteers, to the women's group, everybody who helped make really, it was just a wonderful, the parade committee. I get in trouble every time I forget somebody, so if I did, my apologies. But everybody who contributed to make the parade, really, it was special. I had to be the grandpa Uber right after the parade and shuffle around some grandkids, so I got back late, but I did catch the end of the ceremony. It was very nice. Roz did a terrific job again, Rosalind Yearman. And so it was really very nice, the whole thing. So thank you very much to everybody on that, and I guess that's it for now.
Thank you. Mr. Bliss?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Corbett's right. The parade was amazing this year. Probably the best that I've experienced since I've been on council, though you could almost chew the air. It was really hot and humid. Would have loved for it to be like 5 degrees cooler with a better breeze, but you can't really pick the weather. I will say this, my favorite moment was in the ceremony. Both the Lamfair and Madison bands performed together as a tribute to those who fell in battle, and it was just a phenomenal sight to see, and I applaud all of the students who took their time out of their busy schedules to be able to not just march in the parade, but stay for that service afterwards and perform together. Particularly those seniors who were off from school and still came back to be able to do that. So much appreciated to them. Also much appreciated to all the volunteers and everybody who did walk in that parade. It was a great experience, and I know that the parade committee is going to continue to make improvements and make the parade better every year, as well as making that service more impactful, just as they did this year. It was a really phenomenal service afterwards. If you haven't stayed to the end and come up to the gazebo and watch that service, you owe it to yourself to do that next year. It was really, really phenomenal. A couple quick things. I want to thank and congratulate Councilor Grafstein on the noxious weeds ordinance. It's a really big win for our city. I wanted to also thank and congratulate Councilman Corbett on the fireworks ordinance passing on second reading. That was a lot of great work that was done. Also, Mrs. Marsh, your great idea for the relocation of the Active Adult Center. It was great to see that coming to fruition on what I think is maybe the first real step out of many, but it's going to be a phenomenal thing for our city. I'm excited about that. I also wanted to highlight Emma Green, who's still in the audience right now. Thank you for your continued activism in our city. I know it's particularly difficult when you're away at college, but you still find time to come home and make sure that the community that you love, that you grew up in, is continuing to grow and continuing to showcase the values that you know that this community has, should have, and should always have. So thank you for your continued activism, and we hope to see a lot more of you. One final thing from me is we talked about the fireworks ordinance today. I would like to bring back a discussion on the outdoor fire pits. When we approved that, it was the first time that we had. It was by popular demand, but I think in hindsight, we probably were a little bit too conservative on the distances. Most of the homes in our city that are now operating fire pits because they caught a headline that said that it was okay are doing it that's technically against the ordinance because it's pretty significant distances from structures. Even though they are present, they are keeping a fire extinguisher next to it. I don't believe that we should have it. I think it's a 20-foot distance. I could be wrong, but it's a pretty significant distance from any physical structure. And as was noted earlier in the meeting, Madison Heights is pretty densely populated, and so any small ranch in our city, like 1,000-square-foot ranches in our city that have a detached garage, pretty much eliminate any ability for that outdoor fire pit use. And a small 2-foot by 2-foot outdoor fireplace I think we can do a little bit better in the ordinance. So I'd like to see us get a legal opinion on that for how we can shorten that distance safely and make that more available to our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, could I just ask one quick question? If you
Yeah,
wouldn't
sure.
mind including in your request, that maybe if the staff could do a survey of what other communities are doing in terms of distances and so on, I'd be curious to hear what Royal Oak and Clawson. Thank you. I'm sorry, sir.
Thank you. Anything?
Particularly communities with the same type of dense population too. You know, like Troy's ordinance wouldn't be as relevant to us. So.
Anything else, Mr. Bliss?
No, that's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Gettings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I just wanted to say goodbye to Kirby Rochester. He was a recreation leader, I believe. Coordinator, maybe is the correct term. He's going to be going on to Sterling Heights and working over there. He did a nice job at the rec department over the last few years. Also, the folks on the parade committee, from Martha to Andy to everyone, to the police reserves, to the police, to everybody. You guys did a great job. It was a beautiful ceremony. And we have another big event coming up. I believe it's June 30th. The last Sunday of the month will be the festival in the park, the fireworks, entertainment, and I believe it's slated to start at 7 p.m. And that's always a great day for the city. I think that's everything, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, Mr. Sherman?
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. City Manager, Mrs. Marsh?
Yes, I would echo the comments of the Memorial Day Parade. It was very nice, especially since I got to watch the whole thing and didn't have to walk. Also on June the 3rd, for those of you that are interested in landscaping, MSU will be present at the fire station from 6 to 9 to the eco-friendly landscaping seminar discussions, especially if you were interested in noxious weeds. It'll kind of give you a way to do some native planting. And we are also starting our Citizens Academy for the second year. It was very popular last year, and this year we are going to be opening applications on June the 1st. So apply early because that gets capped at 25 spots. And the first night will be August the 14th. It will be held every Wednesday from 5:30 to 7:30 for 8 weeks. That's it.
Thank you. City Clerk, Mrs. Prince?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We recently received our no-knock vinyl stickers for the doors, so if you are not already signed up to be on our no-knock list, you can go on our website and fill out a form, and we will either send you a sticker or you can come in and pick it up at the clerk's office. Also, if you received your permanent absentee postcard form, please fill, and you're interested in being on our permanent list, please fill that out. You can either drop it off, send it in, email it to us, fax it to us, and we'll get you on the list. And what that means is for every election, you will receive an application for the election to vote absentee, and then you can fill that out, and we will send you a ballot when they're available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Grafstein?
Thank you. I would also like to echo thank you to everyone who participated with the parade and the following ceremony. It was a beautiful ceremony. It was wonderful to hear the essay that our winner tonight had written. He was too shy to read it, but it was wonderful to hear that as well. The Gold Star mother had written a poem that we heard, and it was very heartfelt, and I was honored to be able to sit next to her during that ceremony. And I want to thank everyone who did attend that. June 3rd, as Mrs. March mentioned, is the MSU landscaping presentation. So if you are interested, let us know. We would like to register you for that. Friday, June 7th is Wear Orange for gun awareness, just to bring awareness. If you could see this on the TV, but the people in the audience today who were here to support that were wearing orange. So if you could do that. And I just want to make a shout out to Alice, who spoke tonight. Alice is in her 70s, and she said that she doesn't have to hide. She doesn't have to hide the fact that she has butterflies, which is insane to think that someone would have to hide that. But she also doesn't have to hide the fact that she is gay. She's 70. It's not a phase. She's not going to change her mind. And more importantly, it's nobody's business. So I just want to put a big shout out to her for stepping forward and saying that. That's it. Night.
Thank you. Mr. Soltis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say that the 15th of May, we went on our 6th trip to Lansing, Older Michiganian Day. And it was another great time. The weather was held out. I want to thank Chief Haynes because he went along with us and helped out because we had 42 seniors this year. That was our record. And I could have had more. It was, I think, close to 55 that wanted to come, but we only had a 40-passenger bus. And the chief and I had to drive separate because of that. City Manager Marsh, what was the driver's name?
Linda Harms from the DPS.
She did a fantastic job. She drove diligently, got there, and she helped out chaperone because 42 of them was more than the chief and I can handle. But she she did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, the Area Agency on Aging 1B helped us out and give us a chaperone as well. But we did. There was a little glitch with the lunch, but all in all, it turned out well. We went up to the gallery. Representative Ellison announced the group, and everyone stood and clapped. So it was a good time, and we made sure that we had everybody on the bus and nobody was missing. Thankfully, 6 years and no one missing. That's a good record, I think. But overall, it was a great time. They all enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to it next year. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to thank the staff and the volunteers for preparing a really important city event with the Memorial Day Parade. I want to thank City Manager Marsh for enjoying the day with us. And then, of course, to our city library director, Rosalind Yerman, for preparing the most meaningful part of the day, the solemn ceremony. And Councilor Grafstein is right. It's so brave of our local Gold Star mother to stand there and remind our public of the purpose of this event. So thanks for making note of that. And what a fabulous job by the young man from Hiller Elementary, student whose essay about what Memorial Day means to him was truly moving. There were tears in the crowd as his essay was recited. And I would hope that we could post that on our city website with his name and any other relevant identifier for him. This was a great meeting. Our city, I think, is in really good hands. There has been really strong moves on our city administration. And for almost a year, Melissa Marsh has held the seat of city manager, either as interim or the fully appointed one. And I think Melissa is doing an excellent job. She's put into place an excellent team. Of course, when you're coach of the team, you get to hire the assistant coaches, and City Manager Marsh has found a great financial director and treasurer in Linda Kunith. Melissa hit another home run with Barry Hicks, our new economic development director and commissioner of noxious weeds. And Melissa, you're doing a fine job. You're presenting really difficult issues to us in a very comprehensive way, teaching us the issues and walking us through it. And you're really making our job easier on evaluating these and giving you direction. So thank you. And thanks again for the residents of Madison Heights who come to our meetings and express their opinions. It's always important to hear the comments from the people who elect us. I don't think there's any other business on our agenda tonight. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Good evening.